Religious principles are dangerous in regards to vaccination because they undermine the scientific basis for making protective decisions for children, a vulnerable population that cannot act on their own behalf. The National Conference of State Legislatures points out that vaccine laws are made by individual states, and the level of enforcement can vary widely between the states. Vaccination opposition, however, occurs within all states based on various different principles. Even before the official release of Gardasil, the first Food and Drug Administration's approved vaccine against HPV, a controversy among parents and religious groups. In the New England Journal of Medicine, James Colgrove explains that HPV is somewhat unique among vaccines because it protects against sexually transmitted disease within the virus that causes cervical cancer. Avoiding the vaccine is thus likely playing with fire and hoping not to be burned. Proponents explain that HPV is the most common sexually transmitted disease in the United States, and that the vaccine protects against the two strains most commonly known to cause cervical cancer. According to a CDC newsroom, there are about 6 million people affected with HPV annually, and almost 10,000 acquire cervical cancer. HPV is a roadblock to healthy living. Opponents of mandatory vaccination argue that the Gardasil vaccine should not be compulsory simply by merit to the fact that the vaccine protects against something that can be avoided by not engaging in risky sexual behavior. It is necessary to receive the vaccine during childhood in order for it to be the most effective. Although vaccination is oftentimes a difficult prospect, as the cliche states, no pain, no gain. The tendency to interpret the Gardasil vaccine as undermining to the religious principles of abstinence leaves women to the potentially deadly disease that can be prevented by taking action during one's childhood. A 2007 study showed that religious beliefs and church attendance were largely predictive of a parent's opposition to the Gardasil vaccine. This line of reasoning based in values and beliefs creates a system for making a decision that is flawed in regards to vaccines. Vaccinating a child against a potentially deadly disease that can occur at any point in the lifespan development does not condone sexual activity. In fact, the disease could be transmitted via one's spouse. Overall, the value and belief base in acceptance of the Gardasil vaccine contains flawed logic that subverts scientific advances made on one's behalf of a serious women's health issue. Moral and value-based judgments aside, the vaccine has been proven to prevent HPV infection and cervical cancer. Only a third of the population currently receive the Gardasil vaccine. According to CDC Director Tom Frieden, our low vaccination rates represent 50,000 preventable tragedies. 50,000 girls alive today will develop cervical cancer over their lifetime that could have been prevented if we had reached at least 80% of the vaccination rates. For every year that we delay in doing so, 4,400 girls will develop cervical cancer in their lifetimes. The National Cancer Institute explains that the effectiveness of the vaccine based on clinical trials as well as statistical data from before and after the vaccine's introduction proves that it is highly effective. Inarguably, saving someone's life from a life-threatening disease should be taken precedence over value-based judgments. Our policy and decision-making should rely on this fact-based methodology, on a fundamental knowledge and the scientific method to improve policy decisions. Government intervention in the form of legislation mandating vaccination is required to protect girls from this vital women's health issue. However, educational campaigns must necessarily support legislation due to the potential for religious-based exemptions. The significance of religious and value-based decisions are important to consider when addressing policy regarding vaccines. Policy regarding vaccines, especially one that would have potentially saved lives, should be understood instead through a knowledge-based scientific framework in order to safeguard the future of all girls.